Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. For the Sigma male, this silence is not born of ignorance or indifference, but rather of a quiet boundary, a protective space carved with intention and clarity. This is not about rejecting others, but about preserving energy, autonomy, and peace of mind. In a world that glorifies constant communication and togetherness, Sigma males remind us that solitude is not loneliness. It is a powerful form of self-mastery. Psychological studies even suggest that introverted personalities, which often overlap with Sigma traits, require more downtime to recharge their mental and emotional energy. By stepping back, they safeguard their inner world, ensuring that their contributions to others remain authentic and meaningful rather than forced or drained. When it comes to family dynamics, this distance can seem puzzling or even cold to outsiders. Yet the choice is rarely driven by anger or rebellion. Instead, it emerges from a careful weighing of priorities: peace over chaos, authenticity over obligation, and individuality over conformity. Sigma males value relationships deeply, but they prefer quality over quantity. Rather than being entangled in every gathering or expectation, they connect deliberately and intentionally, choosing moments of genuine presence over superficial contact. In many ways, their silence is a form of respect. It honors both their own need for freedom and the other person's space to exist without unnecessary tension. This practice of creating distance also reflects an ancient truth about human nature, that solitude fosters clarity. Philosophers, monks, and great thinkers throughout history have withdrawn from the crowd to cultivate wisdom. The Sigma male's instinct to step back aligns with this tradition, as it allows him to reflect, reset, and return to his relationships with a clearer sense of self. What may look like withdrawal is in fact recalibration, a deliberate act of preserving balance in a noisy, demanding world. So when a Sigma chooses silence, it isn't a rejection, but an affirmation of values. It is the quiet reminder that freedom, integrity, and authenticity often require distance. And within that distance lies a paradoxical truth. Even in solitude, meaningful connection endures, calm, deliberate, and profoundly human. Number 1, inner autonomy above all. Sigma males place immense value on personal freedom, and this often extends into how they navigate family dynamics. For many, choosing distance from family isn't an act of rejection, coldness, or lack of love. It's the conscious establishment of a boundary. Boundaries are vital for anyone seeking personal growth, but for the Sigma male who thrives on independence and self-determination, they are non-negotiable. In family structures, there are usually unwritten expectations, be it carrying on traditions, living close by, or making choices that align with generational values. These expectations, while rooted in cultural or emotional ties, can sometimes become heavy chains for someone whose personality is wired toward autonomy. By creating distance, the Sigma male protects his ability to think clearly, feel authentically, and act decisively without being weighed down by obligations that aren't truly his own. Psychology highlights that individuation, the process of developing one's unique identity separate from family influence, is a natural and healthy part of adult development. In fact, Carl Jung described individuation as essential for achieving wholeness, and Sigma males embody this principle almost instinctively. This separation doesn't mean they disregard family bonds. Rather, they understand that closeness without freedom leads to resentment, while distance maintained with respect fosters healthier relationships. It's similar to how oxygen masks work on airplanes. You must secure your own before helping others. For a Sigma male, stepping back allows him to show up more authentically when he does engage with family. Many people misinterpret this distance as coldness, but it's often the opposite. It's a deliberate act of preserving mental clarity, so love and connection can remain genuine. Culturally, we see examples of this tension across societies where traditional collectivist values clash with individualist ones. The Sigma male leans toward individualism, seeking meaning not in conformity, but in carving his own path. Historically, many innovators and leaders who broke away from their family's expectations, like Steve Jobs, who distanced himself from conventional paths, demonstrated how freedom of thought can spark creativity and impact the world. In truth, Sigma males don't walk away from family. They simply refuse to be defined by them. Their boundaries are not walls, but guardrails that keep them aligned with who they are meant to be, ensuring that both their personal identity and their family connections remain intact in healthier, more balanced ways. Number 2, emotional self-regulation. They regulate their emotions internally, valuing equanimity over emotional volatility. Unlike most people who express frustration, excitement, or sorrow outwardly, these individuals process their emotions beneath the surface, as though running them through a private filter before deciding what to reveal. This tendency is deeply tied to self-discipline and the understanding that emotional outbursts often cloud judgment and weaken one's position in life. Equanimity, the ability to remain calm under pressure, has been praised across cultures for centuries. The Stoics of ancient Greece, for instance, believed in the power of a state of serene composure regardless of external circumstances. Similarly, in Eastern philosophy, Buddhism highlights equanimity as one of the 4 immeasurable virtues, teaching that inner balance leads to clarity of thought and compassionate action. In practical terms, people who master emotional regulation tend to be better decision makers. Studies in psychology show that those who manage emotions effectively have stronger resilience against stress and are less prone to burnout, since they do not allow temporary feelings to dictate long-term actions. Yet this inner calm can sometimes be tested most strongly in the realm of family. Familial ties carry an emotional weight unlike any other, because expectations, traditions, and long histories are woven into them. While bonds with family can provide comfort, they can also stir intense emotions that disrupt one's peace. For this reason, some individuals choose to create a degree of distance, not necessarily out of coldness or lack of love, but as a way of protecting their inner equilibrium. In fact, sociologists note that maintaining healthy boundaries within families is one of the keys to emotional well-being, as it prevents cycles of conflict or enmeshment from taking control. Think of it like tending a fire. Too much closeness without balance can cause the flames to overwhelm, while a measured distance allows the warmth to be appreciated without being consumed by it. By regulating their emotions and practicing detachment when necessary, such individuals navigate life with greater stability and purpose. They understand that peace of mind is not a luxury, but a necessity, and that preserving inner calm allows them to act with intention rather than impulse. In a world where external noise is constant, this quiet mastery of the self becomes not only a strength, but also a shield. Number 3, protecting mental focus. Distracting family dynamics can fragment attention, pulling even the strongest minds away from their path. For a Sigma male, this isn't just about dealing with occasional noise or family squabbles. It's about protecting the mental space needed for self-mastery and long-term growth. Unlike extroverted personalities who often thrive on constant interaction, the Sigma thrives in solitude, where silence becomes fuel for creativity and clarity. Family environments, while rich with connection and belonging, can also be a source of expectations, emotional drama, or obligations that tug at one's focus. Studies in psychology show that chronic exposure to domestic stress can impair cognitive function and decision-making, leading to fatigue, anxiety, and even reduced problem-solving skills. For the Sigma male, whose value system prioritizes independence and purposeful living, creating a wide berth from these distractions is less about cold detachment and more about strategic preservation. It's the art of stepping back to see the bigger picture, much like an architect who needs quiet space to envision the blueprint before building begins. Historically, great thinkers, inventors, and leaders often practiced this form of selective distance. Albert Einstein, for instance, was known for retreating into solitude to refine his theories, despite family responsibilities. The Sigma's path mirrors this discipline, guarding mental clarity like a fortress, ensuring that emotional turbulence doesn't cloud judgment or derail progress. In doing so, he isn't rejecting family, but redefining how he engages with them, on his terms, with boundaries that keep his vision intact. This approach allows him to pour energy into long-term goals that outlast temporary distractions, cultivating resilience and self-awareness in the process. When he returns to his family space, he brings with him not only presence, but also a sharpened version of himself, someone grounded, purposeful, and less likely to be swayed by chaos. In a world that often romanticizes constant connection, the Sigma male understands the underrated power of deliberate distance. It is through this space that he sustains clarity, nurtures personal growth, and embodies the quiet strength that makes him both mysterious and admirable to others. Ultimately, the Sigma male's mastery lies not in cutting ties, but in balancing connection with the solitude required to become the highest version of himself. Number 4, preserving values over rituals. Traditions and obligations have long been the glue that binds societies together, shaping identity and reinforcing collective values. From cultural ceremonies to family gatherings, these rituals carry a weight of expectation that most people feel obliged to honor. However, Sigma males approach these structures with a different lens. Instead of blindly following traditions because that's how it's always been done, they focus on the values behind the ritual. For them, meaning matters more than routine. Take, for instance, the act of attending a holiday gathering. While many might feel pressured to participate simply because it's customary, the Sigma male asks, what is the purpose? Is it about strengthening bonds, honoring history, or cultivating gratitude? If the answer aligns with his values, he'll engage wholeheartedly. If not, he's unafraid to step away. This isn't rebellion for the sake of being different, it's about living authentically, refusing to reduce life to a checklist of obligations. Interestingly, psychology backs up this approach. Research on intrinsic motivation shows that when actions align with personal values rather than external pressure, they foster deeper fulfillment and resilience. This explains why Sigma males often find peace in solitude. Distance allows them to reflect on what truly matters, filtering out the noise of societal expectations. By stepping back, they avoid becoming trapped in the cycle of performing traditions without understanding their essence. History also gives us examples of great thinkers who embodied this mindset. Philosophers like Socrates and writers like Henry David Thoreau both challenged the unquestioned rituals of their societies, choosing instead to live by principles that resonated with their deeper convictions. In modern times, Sigma males mirror this approach, not rejecting culture but refining it, stripping away empty formality to preserve what is genuine and meaningful. This makes them both admired and misunderstood. Some may see their distance as detachment, but in truth it's a search for authenticity. By refusing to let traditions dictate their identity, Sigma males demonstrate a powerful lesson for all of us, that the heart of any ritual lies not in the act itself, but in the values it represents. In a world overflowing with obligations, their example reminds us that true fulfillment comes not from doing what is expected, but from doing what is meaningful. Number 5. Curated interactions. Connection is one of the deepest human needs, but for some, the way it is expressed and experienced carries far more weight than the number of relationships they maintain. Studies in psychology have shown that the quality of our social bonds is far more important for emotional well-being than sheer quantity. For example, research from the University of Michigan highlights that people who prioritize depth in relationships over breadth often report higher life satisfaction and resilience in stressful situations. This is especially true for individuals who lean toward introversion or independent thinking, such as Sigma-type personalities who naturally gravitate toward meaningful connections rather than large social circles. For them, a single, honest and vulnerable conversation can hold more value than an entire evening of small talk at a family gathering. Broad, familial exchanges, while warm in intention, can often feel scripted or ritualistic, where polite gestures replace genuine understanding. This is why many find themselves drained rather than fulfilled after such events, because authenticity, not performance, is the fuel they thrive on. Historically, thinkers, writers, and leaders who operated on the fringes of society displayed this same preference, choosing solitude or small trusted circles to channel their energy into pursuits of purpose. Even neuroscience supports this, showing that deep conversations stimulate the brain's reward system, releasing oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that reinforces trust and intimacy, while shallow interactions rarely provide that neurological payoff. In today's hyper-connected age, where social media encourages quantity through likes and followers, those who value quality stand out as rare. They resist the pressure to spread themselves thin, and instead cultivate relationships that feel rooted, intentional, and aligned. While society often equates popularity with success, the truth is that a few authentic bonds can serve as a stronger anchor in life than dozens of acquaintances. Connection is not just about being surrounded by people, it is about being understood, supported, and seen for who you truly are. Those who seek quality over quantity are not antisocial or dismissive of others. They are simply protective of their emotional energy, recognizing that true connection is not measured by how many people are around you, but by how deeply you connect with the few who truly matter. Number 6, self-sufficiency, not isolation. They choose self-reliance, not loneliness. The difference is profound, yet often misunderstood. Too many people assume that when someone withdraws or creates distance, it must be a sign of emptiness or isolation. In reality, self-reliance is one of the oldest and most empowering traits in human history, deeply rooted in our evolution and psychology. Ancient hunter-gatherers had to cultivate independence in order to survive, knowing how to hunt, gather, and create tools without constant reliance on others. That instinct still runs in us today, but in a modern world where dependence has become normalized, those who walk a more self-sustained path are often seen as distant. Yet this distance is not a wall. It is more like a sacred space, an open ground where a person can stand on their own footing without leaning so heavily on the validation or resources of others. Psychology backs this up too. Studies have shown that people who practice self-reliance build stronger resilience against stress, anxiety, and peer pressure because their sense of identity doesn't crumble when external support systems falter. The poet and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson captured this truth in his 1841 essay where he argued that greatness is found in trusting one's inner compass, even if it means standing apart from the crowd. Modern research also echoes this, showing that self-reliant individuals often demonstrate higher self-esteem, improved decision-making, and stronger leadership qualities. The key point, however, is that self-reliance doesn't mean rejecting connection or love. Rather, it's about showing up to relationships already full, already whole, rather than arriving half empty and needing someone else to complete you. Think of it like this. 2 strong trees, rooted and nourished by their own soil, can intertwine and provide shade together. But if one tree is weak and depends entirely on the other for survival, both eventually suffer. That is the essence of why self-reliant people keep a healthy distance. They aren't running away from others. They are cultivating the strength that allows them to show up authentically. Their solitude becomes a workshop for growth, a sanctuary for clarity, and a training ground for resilience. And when they do step into the circle of connection, they bring a richness, stability, and wholeness that can only come from someone who has learned to nourish themselves first. Number 7, navigating difference with grace. They often feel misunderstood, and that sense of disconnection can create tension in relationships, whether personal or professional. Misunderstanding doesn't always come from ill intent. It can stem from differences in communication styles, cultural backgrounds, or even personality traits. For instance, introverted individuals may need space to process their thoughts, while extroverts might interpret that space as rejection. This mismatch can breed conflict if not recognized. Interestingly, psychology has shown that giving someone distance is not always a sign of weakness or avoidance. In fact, it can be a strategic tool for maintaining harmony. The concept of cooling off periods, used in both conflict resolution and negotiation strategies, is grounded in the idea that emotions often cloud judgment, and time apart allows logic to take the driver's seat again. Even in biology, we see this principle when stressed. The body produces cortisol, a hormone that primes us for conflict or flight. But stepping back, resting, and giving ourselves distance lowers cortisol levels, allowing calmness and rational thought to return. Distance doesn't have to mean disconnection. Rather, it can create a safe buffer where respect is preserved and misunderstandings don't escalate into lasting damage. Sometimes the healthiest way to coexist is not to argue louder, but to step aside, breathe, and return to the situation with a fresh perspective. What feels like withdrawal may actually be wisdom in disguise, a quiet act of choosing peace over unnecessary battles. In this light, distance becomes less about separation and more about creating room for mutual understanding. Number 8, intentional presence when it counts. They may keep their distance, but it's not absence. It's a different form of presence, one that values depth over constant proximity. Some people, especially those with an introspective or Sigma-like nature, are often misunderstood because they don't thrive on frequent contact or surface-level interactions. Instead, they conserve their energy for moments that truly matter. When a milestone arrives, like a graduation, wedding, or personal breakthrough, or when life delivers a crisis that strips away pretenses, they appear quietly but unmistakably. This doesn't come from obligation or the need to be seen, but from a deep respect for authentic connection. In psychology, this is often linked to the idea of selective investment, where individuals devote their time and presence to relationships and events that carry genuine meaning rather than spreading themselves thin. Interestingly, studies on social bonds suggest that it's not the quantity of interactions that sustains relationships, but the quality, how safe, supported, and respected one feels in another's presence. These individuals embody that principle perfectly. Their integrity remains intact because they refuse to dilute themselves with empty gestures or shallow appearances. Yet when they do step forward, their presence carries weight. It's the quiet reassurance that even if they are not always around, when life calls for authenticity, they will be there. This balance between distance and devotion creates a kind of trust that loud constancy often fails to deliver. Think of it like a lighthouse, standing apart, not mingling with the boats every moment. But when the storm hits, its beam is the one thing you can count on. That's the paradox of their presence. Reserved but reliable, distant but deeply committed when it truly matters. Distance isn't always distance. For the Sigma male, it's a deliberate rhythm, an invitation to understand, not to judge. In respecting this quiet boundary, perhaps we recognize the understated power in calm presence and thoughtful absence. Thank you for walking this path thoughtfully. Until next time, may your own journey be steady, sincere, and self-rooted.